This is the High School Crossfire. Welcome back.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'll start today by asking a question to the August House. What do Primary 5, the United Nations, and the negative team have in common? I'll leave that up to you. Yes, good afternoon. What is a nation?
Well, according to our characterization, a nation is like
What
Africa,
is a nation?
being the same boundary.
Anyway, a nation is a sovereign territory with a defined boundary. You should agree with this because P5, the United
According
Nations,
to you,
and the
but
negative
on our side, we
agrees
have
with us.
our characterization,
Speaker,
and
what would you
Africa
term
is
as
like a
international?
nation.
What would you term as international tourism?
Well, we are looking at this is a type of tourism whereby citizens of African countries go to other continents and citizens of other continents come to Africa.
Thank you. So, now to the business end of things. Does a high level of income inequality favor sustained economic growth?
Pardon?
Does a high level of income inequality favor sustained economic growth?
If it's not reliable, then it doesn't.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, 29% of Africans live in extreme poverty. Do you agree that African countries have high levels of income inequality?
We look at whereby
Do
it
you
has
agree
created
that high levels of
24.3 million
African countries
jobs
have
due to domestic
income
tourism, meaning that
inequality?
these people are going to get money to carry out
Ladies and
domestic
gentlemen,
tourism and to will
tourism
improve.
is a service of luxury. This means that it is exchanged for with disposable or surplus income. Is this true or false?
Pardon?
Tourism is a service of luxury. This means it is exchanged for with disposable income. True or false?
Well, you talked about
True or
investment,
false?
means you're not
And
going to what?
If you
It's-
spend more
it's
time
going to
listening to the questions than
affect
answering, you
Africa's
have what to
budgets.
say. People living on less than $1.9 do not have a lot of surplus income, and neither do people living below $5. Do you agree?
Well, we are
Do
looking.
you agree?
Pardon?
According to UN, 85% of Africans live below $5 a day. Does this mean they live with a lot of surplus income?
We are looking at whereby jobs are created,
Ladies and
meaning
gentlemen,
that
how
they will
can
get
you say
money
domestic
and they will
tourism can
stop
sustain
if
such
they
a high level of
prioritize
revenue
domestic
if African
tourism.
citizens can hardly afford it? Moving on. Speaker, which African currency ranks in top 5 of most valuable currencies?
Pardon?
Which African currency ranks in top 5 of most valuable currencies?
We are looking at South Sudan.
Anyway, thank you for trying to answer the questions. On average, African currencies have low currency values. Foreign exchange brought by exports such as tourism, when done with a higher value currency, causes significant economic growth. We want this. We ask them, when prioritizing domestic tourism, limit influx of foreign exchange earnings and limit economic growth. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the UN World Tourism Organization, the UN, the negative side, and my P5 SST teacher, a nation is a sovereign territory with a defined boundary. So when you cross the boundaries of a nation, you are doing something international. International trade, international tourism, across the boundaries of a specific nation. They talked about having Africa as a nation. But if you have Africa as a nation, who will police the already war-torn places to avoid them spreading, to limit tourism, as they talked about it? We want to favor tourism as a means of achieving economic growth. But if you have Africa as a country, who is going to police them? Who is going to be responsible for containing epidemics in places which are already infected, like the Sudan Ebola strain which has spread? Who will prevent them from spreading? Who will be accountable for the effect of that on tourism, which they claim is sustainable? Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to tell you that they say the UN connects African countries. Does it connect them to European countries as well? Ladies and gentlemen, the second speaker talked about that. But according to United Nations World Tourism Organization, ladies and gentlemen, African countries should adopt international tourism. And what is international tourism? We defined it as tourism between an African country and another African country or and a country beyond Africa, ladies and gentlemen. You can have intra-regional tourism and intercontinental tourism. There are two different things which the affirmatives fail to distinguish. We talked about encouraging changes in government policies to ensure reinvestment of tourism revenue. This prevents profit repatriation. We talked about Egyptians and whatnot. When someone comes to Egypt to Uganda from Egypt, they'll use Egyptian airlines. Where will the money go? Where will the profits go back? To Egypt, because it's an Egyptian company. But by defining domestic tourism as we did, you can encourage government changes in government policy to ensure reinvestment of that revenue so that the revenue does not leave the country and promote economic growth. We're looking at sustainability. When the blind man leaves a fellow blind man, they will all fall in a ditch. African countries are doing badly. What do we need to do? We need to work with people who are better than us. Thank you for listening to me.
Well, don't quick. These are very simple questions. I want a yes or no. Was there a total lockdown on the African continent during the COVID-19 pandemic on tourists from other continents?
We don't always get what we want.
Yes or no?
And also, tourists from everywhere
or
are
no?
affected. COVID didn't discriminate.
I'll take it my way. Is international tourism seasonal? Yes or no?
No, it's not.
It's not.
Yes, because there are different seasons in the world.
You,
so when it's winter in the Western Hemisphere, it's summer in the Eastern Hemisphere. So you can have tourists coming from the Western Hemisphere during their winter.
Does international tourism cause economic leakage or strain? Yes or no?
No, it does not, because we have talked
yes
about
no?
preventing profit repatriation.
I'm going to take it as a no.
But that's not what I said.
Which African country has the most stable and sustainable economic growth?
Well, what do you term as sustainable economic growth?
Tell me the country.
What do you term as sustainable economic growth? You don't
Tell
define what sustainable economic growth is.
Do foreign investors take their earnings to their respective countries, or do they leave them in Africa? Yes
Well,
or no?
repatriation of profits. Look at Marriott Bonvoy hotels.
Yes or no?
They are run by
Yes or no?
Ugandan
I'll take it
businessman
my way.
who keeps the
Is someone
profits
coming
here.
to Africa from another continent a foreigner? Yes or no?
So is someone coming to Uganda from Egypt?
No, is someone coming to Africa from another continent a foreigner? Yes or no?
My first word was yes.
Yeah. Are we looking for sustainable and stable economic growth for the world or for the African countries?
Well, we rise by lifting one another.
Are we
So
looking
if
it for
African
the world
countries-
or for the African countries?
For everyone.
Okay. Do you believe that Africans travel to countries like Turkey and UAE, and is that promoting sustainable and stable economic growth for African countries?
My beliefs don't matter when debating
Tell
facts.
me, do you believe that Africans traveling to countries like Turkey and UAE, is that promoting sustainable and stable economic growth for African countries? Yes or no?
Considering the market themselves there,
You
yes
don't
it
know.
is.
Thank you, because you don't know what you're talking about. You may take your seat. First of
Thank
all, I
you.
asked, was there a total lockdown on the African continent during the COVID-19 pandemic on tourists from other countries? He was like, no. So what am I looking at? He was like, yes. So what am I looking at? We are looking at whereby if there was to lockdown on foreigners from other continents not coming to Africa, how was international tourism taking place? And how was it promoting stability and sustainability in African countries? They have not explained that point from their first speaker up to now. And my first speaker has emphasized on that point. So what are we looking at? We are looking at whereby we are looking for sustainability and stability of economic growth for African countries. Meaning that you look at countries like South Africa, Kenya, which my speakers have emphasized on, prioritizing domestic tourism. If other countries could prioritize it, just like South Africa, whereby you look at domestic tourism spending was expected to reach 108 billion rand, approximately $7 billion in 2021, reflecting a significant portion of the overall tourism revenue, which was critical during a time of decreased international visitor members. So what are we looking at? We are looking at whereby during that time of COVID-19, we had domestic tourism taking place, whereby these countries that were prioritizing domestic tourism were actually having a stable economy compared to countries like Uganda that were prioritizing what? International economy. Meaning that these countries like South Africa, you look at the levels of development between South Africa and Uganda are not the same. What are we looking at? You look at whereby in 2021 alone, South Africa made over $7 billion compared to Uganda. What are we looking at? If Uganda prioritizes in domestic tourism just like South Africa, they will also have a stable and sustainable economic growth. I asked them, is international tourism season? And they're like, yes. So what are we looking at? We're looking at whereby these people are only going to come during holidays from other continents. People from USA are going to come here when they're on holidays. But looking at locals, someone from Egypt can actually come to Uganda and spend Easter here and then go back to what? To Egypt. Remember, it's a shorter distance, but still it's going to earn revenue to the Egyptian Airways, whereby, and also to the Ugandan Airways, whereby they're going to get money. With all that, we are looking for sustainable and stable economic growth for African countries, and that's why we are prioritizing domestic. Thank you.
Thank you for this debate. It was a good one. I really appreciate quite a number of things that both teams did. I want to start with the motion interpretation. Both teams took up the role of doing team motion interpretation, and all members subscribed to that team interpretation. That was very good because of the consistency, and people kept on supporting that. However, I want to know that it was quite a unique one because both teams refused to concur to the other's interpretation. And this was seen in the motions and the way they were in the definition of key terms. So one team defines international tourism as moving from a nation to another nation. The other team defines international tourism, and according to their characterization, it is moving from Africa to outside Africa, or from elsewhere into Africa. The truth is, according to what both teams presented, there is no problem with that because the motion already tells us that African countries should prioritize. So it is of no offense that the affirmative takes up the role of defining the international tourism as being from Africa elsewhere and from elsewhere into Africa. And it is no punishment to you for also defining it your way. However, I want to also note the uniqueness that comes from Team Negative when they decide to back up their definition with extra sources such as the United Nations websites. That is very important because then it creates relevance and it persuades judges to believe that your definition is quite more plausible. However, that was not the area of judgment. My area of judgment was based on then who better provided exclusive benefits within their characterization. What I mean is who better explained where international tourism benefits us more or where domestic tourism benefits us more. They try to value the quality of foreign exchange that exists within those countries. That, hey, all African countries are poor. People there are very poor. 29% cannot afford $1.7 a day. And you're telling us you're going to convince these people to engage in tourism that can earn more than people that are earning more coming into these countries. What I mean is the people that are coming from elsewhere are richer than these Africans. So if you're going to prioritize domestic tourism, then you have to ensure that the quality of income you're earning is much more than the income that will be earned with international tourism. The extra argument that we get from Team Affirmative that is quite very much believable and quite more appreciable is the argument on self-dependence, but then to back up on that is the thing of seasonal tourism, that, hey, international tourism is seasonal, whereas domestic tourism is continuous. What they respond to you is, whether it is seasonal or not, it still earns more, and we are looking for sustainability. But besides that, if it is winter in America, it will be summer in China. So we shall still have tourists coming from China to come and visit our country. They back up their arguments still more with quite a number of things, such as knowledge transfer, things like better international relationships. They tell you about the stability that comes along with interdependence in economies. So this is why I give my judgment and the win to whichever team I gave it. Style, I give both teams 16. You really did very well, and that's very nice. Strategy. Strategy, I give team negative 28. I give you 27 because I feel like they took up their team burden very well, but they also went along to explain their side of the motion very well. Then content, I give both teams 27. In totality, I give team negative a 71, and I give team affirmative a 70. However, thank you for the very nice debate. This is the best debate so far for the day.
Okay, thank you so much. I will not be so different from what Judge Moro said in appreciating the quality of the debate we had. Good style, good content, good strategy, such a good spirited round of debate, such a debate where we are having a clash on the definitions of what are you taking for international tourism and what you are taking for domestic tourism either side. That is really good, and by virtue that now both teams were able to carry it along the way, that is really perfect of you. And that's why even at the end of the day, if you listen to my marks, really, my marks are, yeah, really there. I want to appreciate Negeta 2 this side. That was really good. I want to appreciate Afama 2 this side. And also want to appreciate Negeta 4. That's very good. Excellent of you. Then also want to appreciate the first speakers. That was good. The others are excellent. People are really good. By virtue that at least the judges were fully able to understand the characterization that comes from this side and also the characterization that comes from this side, despite the fact that we had a definition clash. The only thing that I would like to emphasize that at the end of the day, never forget to always have an engagement from the clash you have to the definitions they have, and also from the clash you have to the definitions that you have at the end of the day. Now, what was required of you is this. This is a debate that wanted both teams to give us the advantages you have for domestic tourism, the advantages you have for international tourism as a priority, and then you go ahead and tell us that, okay, if these are the advantages we have in what we are talking about, then these advantages will not be had in what the opponents are having. For example, if you're talking about if you're talking about domestic tourism, it means what are we going to have in domestic tourism that we are not going to have in international tourism? They say, what are we going to have in international tourism that we shall not have in case we are to make a priority of domestic tourism? Now, what was at the end of the day argued about? Team Affirmative came up with arguments where they were talking about things like infrastructure development, foreign exchange, job creation, tourism recovery, revenue generation of 56%. Then we are also having a team negative that's talking about foreign exchange earnings, visibility, job creation, international relations, and all that. Now, this is what we needed at the end of the day. On another day. Now, one of the major arguments, it was on another day, one of the best arguments that could stand out for Team Affirmative is the argument of reduction of dependence on the external market, profit repatriation, and seasonal tourism. Personally, this was a debate that I think maybe even another team affirmative could win. If you had arguments like which you gave, but it was a matter of building up. Now, the argument of seasonal tourism, it comes from the third speech. Yes, of course, they had an alternative. They're telling that no, by virtue that it is maybe winter in China, it could be maybe summer the other side of the US or the whatsoever. But now for you are telling them, what about now the African countries that are not affected by the issue of winter or whatsoever? That is which watch matched up, and these are the marks I have. For style, I have 15, I have 16 because of the other two speakers. Strategy 30, 31. Content 32. 32, that was really good content that was coming out of you because you supported the jobs and whatsoever in the domestic tourism. They were also able to give quality content when they were talking about the international tourism, making a total of 77 for team affirmative, making a total of 79 for team negative.
Thank you and welcome back from that very, very spirited round of debate. First of all, I would like to applaud the consistency and speaker execution that was portrayed on both ends. We do see proper characterization of the resolution we're talking about in first speech. We do see the stating of a standpoint in first speech. We also see building cases or arguments happening in second speech. We see very nice weighing and clashing taking place in third speech, and we see very nice cross-examination and summing up of the entire debate taking place in fourth speech. It's upon that I really feel obliged to applaud all of you on whatever was showcased today. So today we are faced with a team affirmative that comes and characterizes domestic tourism as tourism within the borders of Africa, vis-a-vis a team negative that comes up and disagrees with that characterization using a literal definition. We furthermore have team affirmative coming forward with a standpoint that fronts them in a way that they say that sustainable and stable economic growth will be achieved on their side because there is limited reliance on external incomes from the tourism industry. And this also resonates with their characterization that is within Africa. We also realize that Team Affirmative comes up with a stand that portrays them looking for the betterment of the economies within Africa. Then we have a Team Negative that comes up with a standpoint that goes, under international tourism, we do realize that we earn more. When we go forward, we have the following arguments being put forward. We have Team Negative coming on and talking about feasibility of the venture. We have Team Negative coming around and showing you the foreign exchange that is got from the venture of international tourism. We also have Team Negative coming front and talking about better international relations, better trade relations, and to sum it all up, all those arguments were not engaged. If you could borrow a leaf from the previous judgments, we do realize that each judge highlighted the unfortunate fact that most engagements set up on Team Negative's end were not engaged, or most arguments brought up by Team Negative were not engaged whatsoever. So this is where I dwell more on the engagement bit. It would be on a better day if we had engagements on those questions set up by Team Negative. I believe my judgment would have been different. So on with the marks. For style, I gave both teams 18 because I believe that whatever was portrayed was well organized. Different debaters had very nice ways of carrying themselves on stage. There was nothing improper that was showcased today. When we go towards strategy, I'll give Team Affirmative 30 and I will give Team Negative 33. This is because Team Negative was able to chronologically show us that their version of events is going to lead to a more sustainable and stable creation of economic growth. When we go to content, I will give Team Affirmative 30 and Team Negative 31, giving us the totals of 82 for Team Negative and 78 for Team Affirmative. It is therefore a unanimous decision that Team Negative wins today's debate. Thank you.